Hey everyone, we are back with another review. This one is going to be another Netflix review, not on a series, but a movie that just recently came out, Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle. So this is, in short, a more mature Jungle Book. We did talk about this on our podcast, on our Geek Out podcast. However, we also felt that, well, at least in my opinion, that there really wasn't a necessity for this movie, especially with how well the Disney's Jungle Book came out. It was so damn good. And this one just seemed like it was just off. Like, why did we need this, especially so soon? And I feel, this review as a whole was interesting because just as of recent, it became a Netflix and theater movie, which seems to be a theme now. A lot of movies are now, you get the choice. You can either watch it in the theater, or if you already have a Netflix subscription, you can go ahead and watch it convenience your home, which I really like, because for what you pay for a Netflix subscription anyways, you are going to be paying for a ticket. So if you don't have one, it makes sense if you're interested. If not, you know that you're not going to go through all that trouble finding time, seats, what have you. Anyways, back onto the movie. So this takes place at the beginning of Mowgli's story, pretty much based around this character. It's a child that is left behind after Khan, who is the tiger and the villain in this whole movie series theme. And he is then raised by wolves. And Bagheera is a Black Panther who leaves, Mowgli to the wolf pack to go ahead and raise as their own. So let me just start off by saying, story-wise, it's pretty straightforward. But there are a few times where you wonder, where is this going? And I feel like for a story that is pretty straightforward as a Jungle Book, for you to say that, especially towards the middle, almost end part, and I'm just thinking, I'm just waiting for it to end. I mean, the story is pretty dry. There's nothing too exciting that we haven't already seen. And to be completely honest, when I thought there was going to be some pretty exciting stuff, I look back into the Jungle Book that happened, recently, and just think there was more action in that whole sequence than in here. As far as the acting, I have to say the actor who plays Mowgli is just okay for me. I didn't sell it, and it's just pretty. I don't know if it was the lines or the dialogue, except of how it was supposed to be portrayed, or just how the actor himself was supposed to say it. But it didn't feel real. It just felt like the lines were being read, especially in the dramatic parts. And I feel like that should be the most beneficial point, where the dialogue should feel as if you were there. However, I will say that the voice acting for the animals, so the Black Panther Bagheera, Baloo the big bear, Shere Khan, the big nasty tiger, all the voice actors for these were awesome, which it's Andy Serkis, which this is his, I believe, his first directed film, and I'm a huge fan of Andy Serkis. I mean, he has given us amazing CGI character as Smeagol, also known as Gollum in The Lord of the Rings, Caesar, from the Planet of the Apes, and he actually voices Baloo, and I think it's really good, but it's not that Baloo that we're known to. It's a more serious, older, wiser type of Baloo, and I miss the dorkiness of that character. Bagheera was actually Bagheera. I'm sorry, I keep saying Bagheera, but it's Bagheera. Bagheera's character, voiced by Christian Bale, was really good, solid. I think probably the most solid of all the characters, of course, next to Benedict Cumberbatch, who played Shere Khan. And I mean, he's already has an amazing voice, right? He's already done Smaug from, the Hobbit series. He just recently did The Grinch. And now here we are with the, reversion or different view of the Jungle Book as Mowgli. And it's a very powerful performance, which, as I stated, you would expect that from Benedict Cumberbatch. So voiceover-wise, I feel like the characters themselves were really good. But the CGI, for me, I just felt like it was one of those where you can definitely tell, but then it was also not in the way that it was child friendly. It was definitely a very serious take on the characters, what they would actually kind of look like, from the scruffiness to the drool to the blood that they show at the end. And I really missed the more fluid character driven designs that were in the Jungle Book. And for me, it just portrays better to the original Jungle Book, Disney's, animated hand-drawn book. And the characters themselves were, I feel, a lot better in that kind of development. So I just felt if they were going with a serious direction here, it could have been a bit more mature then. Because there's just some places where they try to hold back to make it funny for like kid stuff, but then afterwards you look back, you're like, well, these characters look really serious, and then here you go back onto fighting, pretending it's supposed to be this very, darker Jungle Book. So I don't know, I just feel like that part was conflicted. So, however, the score was very good. It was, back and forth between drama and then action and then drama and then action. There really no is in between on that. There is a few like slower kind of flute orchestra to kind of tone the mood, but nothing too big to kind of stand out of place. So I'm going to go ahead and play a piece here from the score. This is a bit later into the film, and it's a really good piece. I hope you enjoy. All right, so as you heard, it definitely had a very dramatic effect, a lot of drums, a lot of, like the howling and the vocals, and I really enjoyed that. I felt like it definitely made it feel like, a jungle tone to it to fit well with the movie. Overall, I just feel like we did not need this movie. If you have never seen the Jungle Book and have never seen the reimagining live action Jungle Book that Disney just did a few years ago, I feel like you'll like this just because it's different anime, but you may feel it slow. And then if that's the case, then watch the Jungle Book. But if you want to see a really good Jungle Book, kind of theme, just watch the original. If not, if you want to see something that's more modern, which I feel like nowadays, especially with all the live action that's happening, everyone wants to see a live action take, then just go watch Disney's Jungle Book, because this is just a movie that I feel like it wasn't even necessary, wasn't needed, and for me, it was a huge waste of time. So the only benefit was that I got to sit down and watch a movie with my wife, which is something that we don't get to do that often because of timing with everything. So for my rating, I am giving Mowgli for Netflix 1 out of 4 stars. Definitely not a good movie. It's one of those movies you just want it to end. And that's unfortunate because originally I was very, conflicted, like, well, I don't need this. But then I saw Andy Serkis was going to do it. So I was like, okay. But then afterwards it was like, well, doesn't really need it. And then after finally watching it, especially now that I was on Netflix, I didn't have to spend any, extra cash or anything. And I already have a Netflix account. So I said, why not? I'm really glad that I did not go to the movies to go see this. So, I mean, if you're a fan of it, I think you may be okay with it, but at the same time, I feel like you may be more disappointed than I was that this even came out. So 1 out of 4 stars for Mowgli. Pretty disappointing overall, but tons of movies to come out. December is a great month, finishing off 2018 with a great amount of awesome movies, so I'm really excited for that. If you don't want to hear any spoilers, you can go ahead and end it here. And thank you all so much again for listening to our podcast. We got our first sponsor by Anchor, which we're really excited about. And also, we're going to have a lot more content coming up for the new year. So thank you all so much for that. But now, into our Geek Out moment. My favorite part of this film was actually at the very end. And no, not because it was actually going to end and I couldn't wait for it to finish, but I felt like the characters came together very well at that point, even though story-wise it was still like, what the hell? But I really like how the characters kind of drove themselves to that point. So they all kind of came together, they band together, which is the part that I missed more so. Everyone felt like they were for themselves in this movie. Every single character was a solo. No one was for anyone. They had dialogue that said, hey, like, we need to help this person, we need to help them, but at the same time, their actions and the way they moved did not feel that way. So, besides that, my only favorite part was just hearing the voices, because I thought the voice acting was the best part of this movie, especially for Christian Bale and Benedict Cumberbatch. So, again, thank you all so much. You can listen to our Geek Out podcast on Anchor, Google Podcasts, and iTunes. We also have a bunch more. Catch us on our Facebook if you haven't. This will also be in a podcast version on the Geek Out. Just look for the Spaniard Review logo. Cute little guy with a knight. So thank you all so much for reviewing. I hope you guys are having a great weekend, and stay tuned for episode 31 on our Geek Out podcast and more movie reviews. Take care.